wasn't much for romantic comedies in my formative years, so it hasn't been until the past few years or so that I decided to give them a chance and realize just what could be done with the genre. I was surprised to find that old Hollywood, in particular, had quite a few clever gems that challenged the audience's expectations, one of them being Charles Vidor's TheSwan from 1956. A remake of the eponymous 1925 film, TheSwan observes Princess Alexandra in her dilemma between duty and heart. To reclaim their throne taken by Napoleon, her mother, Princess Beatrix, implores her to marry her cousin, Prince Albert. When Alexandra fails to garner Albert's attention, Beatrix desperately forces her to court the royal tutor Nicholas, so that Albert will become envious and propose to her. That's some logic right there. From the outset, this sounds like a generic love triangle whereby Alexandra gets what she wants, with little more than some passive charm on her part, and everything ends up hunky-dory, albeit a sprinkle of contrived, superficial drama in the process. Except none of that happens, because the plot actually rests with Alexandra's decisions the entire time, in more ways than one. This film, along with High Society, was the late Grace Kelly's swan song, so to speak, before assuming her duties as Princess of Monaco, and it is truly a testament to her acting abilities. We're told that Alexandra is poised for queenhood, to the point where others find her icy exterior off-putting, and is rather shy to boot. Neither of these statements is entirely true, however, because if we carefully study Alexandra's body language and facial expressions when interacting with Albert, we notice that she isn't genuinely struggling to impress him, nor is she even trying to outclass him in etiquette, given his finicky, irresponsible, and insensitive demeanor. She's on high alert, meaning there's something else going on here that we're not aware of yet, almost like she's putting together a puzzle, but is missing a piece. When she is with Nicholas, we see a wittier, more forthright Alexandra, because he's the only one so far who speaks to her on a human level. Unlike Albert, they have an established acquaintance with no real obligation to one another, which means we can start to see how these characters truly feel about their environment and each other. Alexandra displays a profound amount of emotional intelligence through their interactions. She recognizes the different strains and limits class tensions place on the whole cast, and she reevaluates her role in their perpetuation. So, when she chooses to go on a secret outing with Nicholas, her deepest insecurities are finally belted out. Her position prevents her from doing things how she sees fit, and that includes falling in love freely with whomever she chooses. She hints at her guilt for using it to manipulate him, and this is where she begins to learn that being too compliant isn't necessarily the same as doing right by everyone. Thus, Alexandra rebels, having come to terms with how she and Nicholas feel for one another. Instead of their happily ever after shortly ensuing, though, the film decides to do something brilliant. It shows how neither one of them understands the other. They are far too idealistic when it comes to their ideas about romance, and make snap judgments when presented with any sort of revelation. Once Nicholas discovers Beatrix's plan, he hastily quits tutoring and leaves the palace. He believes that his relationship with Alexandra cannot be repaired, even when she tries to explain that she strived to thwart that plan as she never wanted it to succeed in the first place. He's unwilling to put in the effort to communicate properly with her. But, to be fair, she doesn't bother chasing after him on her chariot, like how Ike drives after Maggie's FedEx in 1999's Runway Bride. Their short romance helps Alexandra come out of her shell, but Nicholas doesn't have the missing piece to the puzzle. Albert does. They finally call each other out on their behavior, as Albert has, at last, taken an interest in Alexandra after seeing this spectacle unfold. But what they learn is that they both share the same goals, to rebel against royal expectations neither of them agrees with, and explore who the other really is underneath the pomp and airs. In his beautiful ending monologue, Albert implies that there's a time and place for every facet of Alexandra's being. She must learn to adapt to situations he knows she's capable of beyond her comfort zone. He symbolizes her need to acknowledge her weaknesses and work on them where necessary, while never straying from her real self. Whether they become friends or something else isn't the point, even if the ending is open to interpretation. By taking Albert's arm, Alexandra is implicitly choosing to cooperate with him, improve herself, and be the person that is her destiny, whatever that means for her and her queendom. She was her own worst enemy, not him. Romantic comedies tend to pass us by so fast, sweeping us up in their fantasies, only to leave us dangling from loose ends of those proverbial threads we desperately cling to every time. TheSwan, on the other hand, is deliberately slow-paced, prompting us to seriously consider its commentaries about what love really is, our failures in cultivating healthy relationships, and the ways our social standings affect our perception of these concepts decades later. After all, how does a ruler in waiting expect to command any kind of credibility in the public eye if they can't address their faults and build rapport within their circles?